Hello guys, how are you? I hope you are doing well. I'm very happy to be here again with you. We are in week number 4. We are very much at the middle of our program. So yeah, it has been, I don't know for you guys, but for me, this seems that the time passed very, very fast. So we're at the middle of the program. With that, I want to invite you to think if you have any feedback, suggestions that you want to provide me, that I can be a better professor for you. My goal here is to promote learning processes on you. So when I receive feedback from my students, that's something that I appreciate, that I'm very thankful, because it allows me to know if I'm doing my work appropriately, or if I can improve in different ways, or if I can do something to help you with your particular learning needs that you may have. So please do not hesitate and send me an email if you have any comments, suggestions that you want to provide me. I'm going to be happy to receive them. And don't worry, I'm not going to take revenge. I'm not going to take any points if you send the feedback. On the contrary, I'm going to be thankful if you send the feedback, okay? All right, so having said that, let's start with the topic of today. So let me share with you my screen so you can see the presentation that I have prepared for you guys. So here is the presentation. And the topic of today is psychological self-care. Last class we talked about physical self-care, right? Now today we're going to talk about psychological self-care. And to do that, we're going to try to cover or to understand 4 different concepts that are very important. The first one is the subjective well-being, then psychological well-being, then the authentic happiness and the PERMA model. And finally, we're going to talk about the character, strength, and virtues, okay? Now, you may start right now thinking on, wait a minute, what does that mean about subjective well-being and psychological well-being? Are they not synonymous? Are they not the same thing? Well, today you're going to see that, no, they are not synonymous and they are not the same thing. And it is very important that we can understand them and that we can work with them so we can have an experience of growth in life, okay? So let's see the topics today. These are the topics. First, I have a reflection that I want to share with you about the cross. Then we're going to talk about the subjective well-being, the psychological well-being, the authentic happiness and PERMA, and then the character, strengths, and virtues, as I said to you, and finally the homework, all right? So let's start with the first topic, which is a reflection on the cross. And you can see here a crucifix. And this crucifix, it's a very important crucifix for me because I'm trying to minimize my image here, because I want, you know what, I'm going to remove my image for a moment, okay? And let's see, because what I want you is that you can focus on the image of the cross for a moment. What do you see there? What do you think when you see this crucifix? When you see Christ there, hanging from the cross, beaten, bleeding, after being tortured, after having such a terrible suffering? What are your thoughts? What is coming to your mind? Perhaps suffering? Perhaps love? Sacrifice? But perhaps also evil? The evil that we are able to commit, the evil that we are able to provoke in others, salvation, meaning. What comes to your mind? When I see this image, many things come to my mind. And one of those things that come to my mind is the passage in the Bible on Mark 8, 34, 35, and I want to share it with you guys. It says, he summoned the crowd with his disciples and said to them, whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and that of the gospel will save it. I want to repeat this, okay? Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and that of the gospel will save it. So, what does this mean? What does this mean when Jesus says to us, whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me? Why is that different Christian denominations, such as Catholics and Orthodox, we have crucifix in our churches and not the empty cross, as many Protestant denominations or different Christian denominations? Why is that we have this image of Jesus suffering, beaten, bleeding? Why is that Jesus is telling us, take up your cross and follow me? For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and that of the gospel will save it. So there are many things that I want to share with you about this. The first is that we are in a class that talks about personal growth. And there are many concepts about personal growth, such as self-esteem, self-actualization, self-acceptance, self-development, and so on, that are very important to understand personal growth from a psychological perspective. But if you think in the message of Jesus, he's sending us a different message. He's talking about self-denial. He's talking about self-denial. He's talking about having a selfless life. So you see, in psychology, we pay so much attention about the self and how to make you feel better and how you can develop yourself better. But Jesus is telling us the opposite. He's telling us, whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself. He's telling us about a completely different message than we hear in society, that we see in the media, and even that we are saying in psychology. And what is this self-denial? What is this deny himself means? Well, it means that it's not my will, but his will that should direct my life, that should order my life. And then I was asking you, why is that some denominations, such as Catholic and Orthodox, we like to have crucifix in our churches and not just the empty cross as many other denominational Christian traditions? Well, it is because the cross, the empty cross, it's a symbol of salvation. It's a symbol of salvation, redemption. That's why when people have their crosses, or when we see a cross in a church, or when we see the cross in ambulance, we know that that symbol is talking about salvation, redemption, is talking about many people experience peace, comfort, right? Which is beautiful and awesome. However, in the time of the Romans, the cross was not that. The cross was a symbol of horror, was a symbol of trauma, was a symbol of unspeakable suffering. So when people were walking at that time and they were seeing places of crucifixion with the crosses, they were not having the experience that many people are having now, this positive experience. They were having a horrific experience of a tormentous experience of remembering the images that they have seen about people dying in the cross. And we have been losing that meaning. I think that as everything has two sides, right? The cross has this beautiful, positive salvation, salvific, comforting symbol, but it also has this horrific, terrible, unspeakable message of suffering. And if we don't see that part, we are seeing just half of the message of the cross. Because the cross is that message of salvation, is that message of salvific plan, is that message of redemption and comfort, but it's also the message of suffering. It's also the message of self-denial. It's also the message of accepting God's will. It's also the message that life is suffering and life is difficult. Now you may say, why is it you're planning to talk about this today with us? Well, I think that in the last couple of years with the pandemic, we all have had an encounter with that side of the cross. I will call it the dark side of the cross, right? The heavy side of the cross, the suffering side of the cross. We have seen people getting sick, people dying, people losing their jobs, people losing their incomes, people increasing mental health problems. Many of us have seen loved ones die. Many people that I know, they die because of the virus. And of all those deaths, there was one special death that was really impacting for me, that it was the death of a real, a very close and dear friend of mine, whom he was my age, he was married, and he had 5 kids. So he left wife and 5 kids behind. And he did something very admirable, in my opinion. He was living in Miami, but his parents were in Puebla, in Mexico. And he was the only child, and his parents were old, and they were admitted in the hospital. They tested positive with COVID, and they were doing very bad, and they were not able, there was no place for them in the hospital. They were not admitted in the hospital because the hospitals were packed in Mexico, and people, they didn't have any opportunity to get medical care. So a cousin of him calls him and says, like, hey, look, I know you're in Miami, you have your kids, you have your wife, but your parents are here alone by themselves. They have very bad COVID. We don't know if they're going to survive. We need someone who's there with them 24 hours helping them. And he said, I'm coming. So he went there, he took care of them, and they both survived COVID. But then he got the virus, and he did not survive. He died in the living room of his parents' house of COVID. And for me, that was a very shocking experience and questioning. I was like, why, God, did you allow that? He was following your commandment of deny himself, and he went there to take care of his parents. And then he died. And then his children and his wife are going to be vulnerable, right? And then this weekend, I had several experiences that were very shocking for me. The first experience is that I don't know if you were aware of a concert in Texas where there was a crowd and things get out of control and many people die. And they died because they were piling up one over the other. They died of asphyxiation. Well, one of the persons who died there, it was a kid from Naperville. I used to live in Naperville. Now I live in Darien. And this kid is the son of a couple that we know. So I attend the funeral of this kid this weekend on Saturday, and it was really hard to see. The mother, she has been in a cross process for many years. She developed a progressive, chronic, with no cure disease that she was a completely functional woman, very active, very strong. And through the last 5 years, she has been losing her functions. And now she's in a wheelchair. She cannot walk. She loses the sight of one of her eyes. She cannot move her legs. She's in a very debilitating position. And now she's mourning the death of her son, who died in a horrible way. And again, why? Why, God, are you allowing this to happen? Then on Friday, I had I have a meeting for the first time with a new patient. He is quadriplegic. He cannot move neither her legs, neither her arms. He was a very healthy guy. He was a real athlete. He was cyclist, swimming, running, doing marathons, everything. And one day he was training on his bike. He had an accident. It's an unbelievable story. He was riding his bike on the street. And suddenly, at the moment that he was riding his bike, a car who was parked opened the door. Because the driver, he was about to get out of the car. And it was at the precise moment that this guy was riding his bike. So he crashed with the door, he fell down, he broke his neck. And since then, he cannot move neither his legs and his arms, and he has no sensation in his body. It has been in that situation for 6 years. And then on Saturday, I had a patient who is hemiplegic. He cannot move half of his body. He had a vascular accident, a stroke, 12 years ago. And since then, he cannot move neither his left arm, neither his left leg. And he has a lot of difficulties walking, and he still experienced neurological consequences of that stroke. And again, the question was, why? Why? Why, God, did you allow this to happen? But then I see Jesus in this cross. Then I see the suffering that he went through for our salvation. I see everything that he did for us. And I remember that he was asking something similar at the cross, right? Father, why have you forgotten me? But his suffering was not meaningless. His suffering was the path for salvation for all of us. We are in a huge debt with him. We better behave appropriately. We better follow his commandments. We better pay back in ways that our lives can be meaningful. And that when we die and we see him, we can say, I know what you did for me, and I try to do my best to pay back, right? With my life, with serving others, with loving my neighbor, with loving you. Just as his death and his suffering was not meaningless, the death of this kid, the accident of my patient, and the stroke of my other patient is neither meaningless. One of the things that I asked to my new patient, the guy who cannot move nothing from his body. He's in a very unique wheelchair because he has a person with him all the time that can help him to stand up and sit down. But it's like a skeletal, what's the name? Exoskeleton, I think that's how they call it. It's like a robotic thing that keeps him stand or sit skin. He can speak. He's a very clever person. He's an attorney, and he's working, and he's completely intelligent. He can use his mouth, he can use his brain, but he cannot use anything else of his body. And I say to him, you have told me so far all the things that you lose from the accident, the mobility, the sensation in your body, the capacity to hug your kids, the capacity to hug your wife, the capacity to be autonomous and independent, because now you need someone to clean you when you go to the bathroom, to give you a shower. You need someone to take care of you completely, right? Now I have a question for you. Do you think that there's any gain that has come out of this experience? And he turned and said, absolutely, Mario. Otherwise, I will lose my mind. And I said, can you tell me what type of gains? He said, the most important of all of them is that I have a closer relationship with God. That I have the opportunity to experience some of the suffering that he experienced for us in the cross. And that now that I cannot be distracted with other things, that now that I'm not distracted with my bicycle, with running, with my friends, with computers and so on, that now that I have so much time without movement, I can pray more, I can meditate more, I can be closer to him more. And I was really surprised. And I was telling him, you are living the mystery of the cross. On one hand, you are carrying the heavy weight of the cross, just as Jesus carried his heavy cross and he suffered. But on the other hand, you are experiencing the salvation of the cross. You are experiencing the redemption in the cross. You are experiencing the transformation. Remember that the scripture says that Jesus, he was dead for 3 days and then he resurrected in a glorious body, right? And I said to him, and it seems to me that you are having also that experience. One experience, do not deny the other. Not only that, one experience is necessary to bring the other. And that's why Jesus is telling us, whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and that of the gospel will save it. He's telling us it's not about having a comfortable life. It's not about self-actualization, self-esteem, self-love, or anything like that. It's about the opposite. Or as a friend of mine said, he's a priest, he says, a life without a cross is not gospel. So I want to invite you guys that you can see suffering in your life as something that is not meaningless, as something that, on the contrary, can be even the source of meaning. I'm not doing apologetics of suffering, okay? I'm not a sadomasochist. But what I'm saying is that sooner or later, we all are going to experience suffering in life. We all are going to have to carry our own cross. And instead of feeling abandoned, or instead of trying to reject the cross, we can do as Jesus did. We can embrace the cross. We can carry the cross, and we can say, not my will, but yours, oh Father. And maybe if we are able to do that, we can be able to transform that suffering in something meaningful and in something beautiful, as he did, as the patient that I was telling you is doing, as many people are doing. In the last class of this course, we're going to talk about something that is called post-traumatic growth. And you will see it's an experience of growth after trauma that many people experience, even after such horrible things, such as kidnapping, rapes, and the killing of a son or whatever. And there are people that they can say, my life is better now than before. That's the mystery of the cross. That's the two sides of the cross. I want to encourage you to take a look to the crucifix, maybe to have a crucifix close to you so that you don't forget the sacrifice that he did for all of us, and that you don't forget that we are called also to carry our cross with the two sides, with the heavy suffering side and with the salvific, powerful, comforting side of the cross. All right. I'm going to continue. I hope that this was not too long for you guys. I'm sorry. If you want to know more about crucifix and the meaning of suffering, you can visit these links. The first one is a YouTube video, and the second one is an article. This is a share that I gave in Trinity's Chapel 1 year ago. So maybe you would like to take a look on that as well. All right, so let's go to talk about subjective well-being, okay? You can see that I have in the title subjective well-being, hedonic happiness. And I want to explain you something. From the time of the Greeks, there was two different ways of understanding happiness. One was the hedonic happiness, and the other one was the eudaimonic happiness. The hedonic happiness, it was pretty much the school of hedonism or Epicureanism. And what Epicurean was saying is that we need to find more positive experiences in life than negative experiences in life in order of having satisfactory life, having happiness in life. Now, the eudaimonia school, which comes from Aristotle and then the Stoics and so on, they were saying something different. They were saying like, no. You can have a good life regardless if you have satisfaction or not. You can have a good life even when life is difficult for you. So in that sense, it's very similar to Christianity, guys. They were saying, but for you to have that good life, you have to cultivate the four cardinal virtues. So since the time of the Greek, there has been a challenge, a conversation, a confrontation of ideas on what is really the meaning of a good life, what is really happiness, and how can we cultivate that happiness. So in psychology, in the 80s, that conversation, that debate of ideas, dialogue of ideas, took place again in the psychological field. And the first one in talking about these topics again was Diner, or I don't know how to pronounce it. You have the last name here. I say Diner, but maybe it's Diner, I don't know. And he developed the concept of subjective well-being, which is very similar to the concept of hedonic happiness of the Greeks, okay? And he says subjective well-being is people's cognitive and affective evaluations of their lives. So it has three components, okay? Cognitive, affective, evaluations. About what? Our lives. So what we say to ourselves about our lives and how we feel about our lives. And he was saying, or according with Kashdan, he says, cognitive appraisal, the cognitive element of this evaluation, describes how we consider our global overall life satisfaction and our satisfaction with specific domains. For example, family life, career, and so forth. So what are we saying to ourselves? Is this what I was expecting? Is this the family life that I was expecting? Is this the career that I was expecting? Is this the way that I look that I was expecting? Am I comfortable with my life, what I'm thinking about my life, yes or no? But then the second element of the definition, the affective appraisal, he says, concerns or emotional experience. High subjective well-being is the experience of frequent and intense positive states, such as joy, hope, and pride, and the general absence of negative ones, anger, jealousy, and disappointment. So as you can see, what they are telling us from a subjective well-being perspective is that what it is important for you to experience life satisfaction, to have happiness in life, is that you are satisfied with the way your life is going, the family, your job, the way that you are, and also that you have more positive experiences than negative experiences, that you have more pleasure than suffering in life. And if you have these two elements, the cognitive appraisal and the affective appraisal in a positive way, then you're going to have life satisfaction, psychological well-being, okay? You can see that it's very hedonistic. It's a very Epicurean perspective. They are telling us pretty much what Epicure was telling us very long time ago. Now, there are three components of the psychological well-being. Oh, I'm sorry, I misspelled that. It's psychological well-being. So it's SWB instead of SBW. And it says frequent positive affect, 2, infrequent negative affect, and 3, cognitive evaluations of one's life satisfaction. Now, the psychological well-being has been correlated with life satisfaction, mental health, physical health. I apologize, I don't see this. Academic and works achievement. So what can we take about this theory? Or what we can take about this theory is that, yes, this hedonistic element of life, it's important. Just as I was telling you that the cross has two sides, right? The salvific redemption, comforting side of the cross, but also the dark, suffering, heavy weight of the cross. Well, and as I was telling you, if we only pay attention to one side of the cross, we're not seeing the cross really, we're just seeing a fraction of the cross. If we pay attention to both of them, yeah, that's going to be much more complete experience. Well, same thing in life. What they are telling us is, look, guys, you need to look for these positive experiences. And if you do that, you're going to feel good with you, with yourself, with your life. You're going to have positive affective reactions. And there's a lot of research backing up this. So, for example, people who work out at least 3 days per week, people who sleep at least 8 hours every day, people who have a good nutrition, but also people who have sex, people who have, and I should say, sex in a loving, committed relationship, people who enjoy drinking, eating moderately, people who have, what's the word that I'm looking? I don't know if it's frugal activities or leisure activities in life. They experience more pleasure. Their brain is promoting the release of dopamine. And because that is promoting the release of dopamine, they feel good. Now, having said that, we want to be careful because the area of the brain that controls pleasure, that allows us to feel pleasure, is also the same area that controls suffering. And what we have seen, this is based on research in clinical experience and even in our own experience, is that something that is good for us, something that brings pleasure to us, if it's disordered, if we don't have a good order, if we don't have control of it, it becomes something that is the source of suffering. So, for example, food, again, people who allow themselves to eat appropriately and to have yummy food from time to time and so on experience pleasure. But those of them who have those type of food in excess, that abuse of that, they can become binge eaters. They can become addicts to food. And then what happens is that the positive experience of food is going to reduce the intensity and frequency of appearance, and it's going to increase the experience of withdrawal, the experience of obsession for the food, and then the person is involved in an addictive cycle of food, having negative consequences as well, such as overweight and obesity, diabetes, cancer, and negative mood swings. It's the same thing that happens with alcohol, right? When we drink alcohol, we feel good. It helps us to relax. It helps us because it's an instant shot of dopamine. But then what happens if you abuse of alcohol? If you consume alcohol too often and too much? Well, alcohol is also a depressor of the nervous system. And what happens is that people start experiencing more depression in their life. Same thing with watching series in Netflix, right? We all love to be watching some series, having some snacks, having some drinks. But if you do that too much, you're going to start experiencing also depression. So what I take about this psychological well-being theory is positive experiences in life are important, and we need to cultivate a positive attitude in life with positive experiences that can help us to have an appropriate level of pleasure, satisfaction. But we need to be also careful that if we do that too often, we may be promoting the opposite effect that we are looking in life. Instead of satisfaction, we may decrease satisfaction in our life. So now let's talk about the following theory, the alternative. And this was promoted by Carol Reeve, or she's still alive, she's still working, she's an amazing psychologist. But at the time of the subjective well-being, that it was like the main theory, the main proposal, Carol Reeve was like, wait a minute, no. It's not just about feeling good and having nice experiences in life. It's also about how you face life. What is your response to life, even in moments of adversity and difficulties? So she was more in the side of the eudaimonic happiness. Remember that I said to you that there was two schools in the Greek philosophy. One was the hedonist or the Epicureanism, and the other one, that is the eudaimonic, that it was first proposed. Well, in reality, was originally proposed by Socrates, and Plato was talking about these two, but then Aristotle tried to come with a more profound explanation of it. There's a very interesting book that it's called Ethics of Nicomachus. Okay, now I don't think that that's the way to pronounce it in English, but it's Ethics of, well, it was his nephew. He wrote that book for his nephew Nicomachus. We call it that in Spanish. Nicomachus. I don't know how to pronounce it in English anyway. So, but it's the Ethics, okay? It's the book of Ethics of Aristotle. And he was talking more about what is this good life and how eudaimonics should be like the goal to achieve in life. Now, have in mind, guys, that Plato, he was the first to talk about eudaimonics in the sense of how can we conquer eudaimonics. And he proposed the 4 cardinal virtues, which they are courage, which is being brave in life, stand up for what is right, even in the face of danger or difficulties, expressing your voice, expressing your values, defending your ideals. Then prudence or self-control, right? That is, like, yes, you need to be brave in life, but you also need to control your emotions, control your impulses, because if you're just brave in life, you can commit many errors that can cause consequences for others and even for yourself. You need to have self-control. When, how am I going to express my ideas, my opinions? When, how am I going to use my physical strength, my psychological strength to defend things? Also, how am I going to relate, control, pleasure in my life? What is going to be my response to alcohol, to food, to sex, to all these things that are so good, but also so addictive, right? So you need self-control. The number 3 is justice. Am I able to work promoting justice in the world? Am I able to treat others in a fair way? Am I able to understand that regardless the race, sex, economical situation, and so on, we all share our humanity, and therefore we all need to be treated justly? And the 4th virtue, which is wisdom, is the capacity to see deep, the capacity to understand things from different perspectives, the capacity to come with explanations, with profound, deep explanations in life, right? Now, these 4 cardinal virtues have been translated in with different concepts, but they all are talking about the same. So Plato was saying, like, if you cultivate these 4 cardinal virtues in life, you will achieve eudaimonia. And for him, eudaimonia was the good that contains all goods in life. So it was like the ultimate goal in life. Now, Christians, we talk that also we have 3 theological virtues, which they are faith, charity, and hope. So as Christians, we should work in building these 7 virtues in our life, in our daily life. That's what will give us holiness. That's what will promote in us being holy, being people of God in reality, right? Okay, so now, what is this psychological well-being theory? Well, it's a psychological theory of eudaimonia. It's a psychological theory on how to conduct your life virtuously. And Carol Reeve, who's the author of this, she proposed that this psychological well-being has 6 elements. Number 1 is self-acceptance. It's a positive attitude towards the self, acknowledgement and acceptance of multiple aspects of self, including good and bad qualities, positive feelings about one's past. This is very important because instead of talking about self-esteem, she's talking about self-acceptance. She's saying, like, you don't need to be perfect. You don't even need to feel good with yourself all the time. You don't need to be a person who has just qualities. You, as any other person in the world, are the result of qualities and also areas of opportunities, strengths and weakness. And it's better if you accept yourself as you are. Otherwise, if you don't accept yourself as you are, you cannot improve. So if you are familiarized with the AA groups and AA philosophy, Alcoholics Anonymous, they say they have 12 steps in their recovery process. But they say that the first step is the most important of all of them. And that if you are able to take the first step, you have accomplished 50% of your recovery. And that is accept that you are an alcoholic, accept that you have a problem with alcohol. And I think it's brilliant because you cannot transform what you cannot accept. Same thing with us. If we cannot accept that we have limitations, that we have bad qualities, that we have weakness, how are we gonna be able to transform ourselves? Now, the second element of this theory is positive relations with others, warm, satisfying, trusting relationship with others, concern for the welfare of others, capacity for strong empathy, affection, and intimacy, understanding of the give and take of relationships. So we are social animals. We live in communities. We are born and we grow in a family and in a society. Loneliness is poisonous. One of the things that it's an important topic for research is the correlation between loneliness and the development of dementia, Alzheimer, for example. And I have seen this with many patients. As soon as they grow old and their kids are not close to them, and they retire and they don't have friends anymore, and they spend all the time at home by themselves, it's more likely that they develop that dementia. Not only that, isolation, as we talked in the first week, has been correlated with cancer, diabetes, metabolic syndromes, depression, anxiety. We were created for community. Therefore, it's very important that we're able to have positive relationship with others. Then the element number 3, autonomy, self-determination and independence, the ability to resist social pressure to think and act in particular ways, regulate behavior from within, and evaluate oneself based on personal standards. It's very interesting because she used the word autonomy, not the word independence, okay? Or independent, because we cannot be completely independent. We depend of others. We depend, for example, right now I'm here at my home. I depend of the work of people in the electricity industry to provide power to my home. So I can have light, I can have internet, and I can record this. I also depend on the people who build this house, the constructors. So I can habitate this and I can concentrate in studying these topics so I can present these topics to you. But I also depend on my wife. She's doing her part in our marital agreement. I do my part, she's doing her part. And because of that, things are working well in our relationship and in our family. I depend on the government for having an economy that allows us to keep jobs, and so on. I depend on people's appropriate behavior, so I cannot be afraid that someone is going to break in my home, and therefore I cannot be in peace. And you might think on this, or maybe we don't think on these elements as often as possible because we give them for granted. But from where I'm coming from, just having the sense of insecurity, not being safe, and that in any given moment someone can break in your home, or that if you are on the street driving or walking, someone may kidnap you. It's a horrible experience. So I like more the concept of autonomy because I can move myself in this society, but even though I'm still dependent or interdependent of others' people, behavior, and lives. Environmental mastery, the sense of mastery and competence in one's environment, the ability to control a complex array of external activities and leverage opportunities, the capacity to choose or create context that suit needs and values. So I think that one of the most humbling experiences in life is to try to learn a second language. And even more than that, moving to a country where you have to speak that second language. That happened to me when I moved here. It was a lot of anxiety, a lot of frustration, but also a lot of humility and vulnerability. I think I felt like perhaps some children feel when they are learning a language, trying to communicate something and not having the words to do that. And then seeing others people's reaction, right? Some of them trying to understand, trying to help you, but some others getting desperate. For me, it was an amazing opportunity to cultivate humility. And oh boy, I really need that humility at the moment. But without that, I was not able to have this environmental mastery. So for me, there was no option. I had to learn the language at the time to find a job and provide to my family in difficult times for medical needs and so on. But there was no option. Remember what we have been talking about, meaning in life. There was a meaning for me to take care of my family. And as Nietzsche was saying, that who has a why in life, no, that who has a how in life, no, I'm sorry, that who has a why in life will find any how in life, or something like that. If you have a meaning, you're going to find a way to solve things, to develop this environmental mastery. Am I able to adjust? Am I able to flourish? Am I able to make decisions in my work, in my couples relationship, in my family? Am I able to find my place in my society? That's environmental mastery. Purpose in life, the possession of goals and sense of direction, the feeling that there is meaning to present and past life, holding beliefs that give life purpose as well as aims and objectives for living. Remember what I was telling you about my client? That he was telling me, I haven't lost my mind because I think that God wants something from me out of this experience of being quadriplegic. I hope that this can bring inspiration in others. He was telling me how his kids have been reacting to this situation. And he says, they are so mature, they are so different from other kids because now they know what suffering looks like. And I hope that my suffering is preparing them. I was for their own suffering. I was honestly, I was like, oh my God, this guy is amazing, right? So purpose in life, even in those difficult situations. And finally, personal growth, feelings of continued development and the sense that one is growing and expanding, openness to new experience, realization of one's potential, and perceived improvement in self and behavior over time. Change that reflects greater self-knowledge and effectiveness. I was talking with another patient and I was telling him, it seems to me that you push the button of pause in your life, that you have paused your life, and that you are in a place of wishing your life can be as it was before. And because of that, you are not moving forward. You are not projecting yourself in the future. You are stuck. You're the same person that the person that you were 10 years ago. No new experiences, no new development. You're the same person. And I think that the level of depression that you have and the level of anxiety that you have, it's connected with that. And he was like, how? And I said, well, we were created for the future. We were created for us to project ourselves in the future. Everything starts with one cell, right? At conception, we are one single cell with all our DNA, with all our uniqueness, but just one cell. And suddenly start dividing in 2 cells, then 4 cells, then 8, 16, 32, 64, until the present time, that we are trillions of cells. We go from zygote to fetus, from zygote to embryo to fetus to infancy, child, adolescent, adult, and elderly. We are moving forward. We are looking to the future. That's personal growth. But we also have forces inside of us, societal forces, experiences in life. They are trying to pull us down, back, so we remain stuck. Personal growth is something that we need to work for it, even though we are in this constant movement to the future. But we also need to think on how am I going to do it. All right, so that's the psychological well-being model of Carol Reeve. And now we're going to talk about the final model, which is the authentic happiness of Martin Seligman. I already talked about Martin Seligman in our class number 3, I think, no, 2, number 2. And I also talked to you about the authentic happiness and the shift that he has done from authentic happiness to PERMA, the PERMA model of well-being. So let's first review what is this authentic happiness model. He says that it's the authentic happiness, as he called it. It's the result of the integration of the hedonic and eudaimonic happiness, of the subjective well-being and psychological well-being. It's trying to bring in your life positive experiences, but at the same time having the courage to do something meaningful with your life. So element number 1, the pleasant life. It's a hedonic orientation concerned with positive affective experiences. Number 2, the engaged life. That involves one's engagement with engaging, flow, eliciting activities. This is using all my abilities, capacities, skills to flourish in life. And then the third element, the meaningful life, is the eudaimonic orientation that focuses on working toward a higher purpose. So he's telling us, yes, it is okay that you look for positive, pleasurable experiences in life, but that's not all. You also need to, and remember what I say, be careful because too much can be dangerous. But also you need to develop this attitude of personal growth and have purpose and meaning in your life. And when you conciliate those two, when you bring those two in one goal in your life, then you will be developing a meaningful life. Your life will be more than what you want, but will become also, how can I contribute to my society, to my community? How can I contribute to the well-being of others? You're gonna move from a selfish perspective to a selfless perspective. All right. But then I said to you, he said like, maybe that's not completely appropriate. Maybe it's not the best way to think about this personal growth experience that we all are looking for. And he developed the model, the PERMA model, which says well-being is a construct, and well-being, not happiness, is a topic of positive psychology. Well-being has 5 measurable elements that count toward positive emotions. Again, these of which happiness and life satisfaction are all aspects. It's important that you have positive emotions, but it's not enough. Number 2, engagement. Yes, use your abilities to engage in life. Number 3, relationships. You are not an isolated person. You are part of the humanity, and you need to grow in community. Number 4, meaning and purpose. You need to have meaning and purpose. Why are you alive? What's the purpose? What's the meaning of the time that has been given to you? What are you going to do with this thing that we call life? Number 5, accomplishment. Yes, You need to use your capacities, your strength, physical, psychological, your intellect, to have accomplishment in life, because that's going to give you a sensation of accomplishment, development, personal growth. And the upshot of this is that well-being cannot exist just in your own head. Well-being is a combination of feeling good as well as actually having meaning, good relationships, and accomplishment. The way we choose our course in life is to maximize all 5 of these elements. So that's the model that Seligman is proposing. So far, what of these 3 models you like the best, the better? The subjective well-being, the psychological well-being, or the PERMA model? My opinion, I like the psychological well-being. I think Carol Reeve, she did a good job on that model. All right, but Martin Seligman has also developed a theory. This is a book that he developed along with Peterson, that it's called Character, Strengths, and Virtues. And what they did is that they studied cultures, philosophies, religions all over the world. And they tried to come with what are the values and the character strengths that all these philosophies, religions have in common, and that they promote them as ways of flourishing in life. And they found in the first column on your left that there are 5 virtues, that these are universal virtues in all cultures or religions: wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, transcendence. Remember that I talked to you about the 4 cardinal virtues? Well, they are coming with a new expression of that. They are saying, oh, there are not 4, there are 6, okay? So wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. But they say every virtue, it's built up by character strength. And this is something very interesting, because if that's the case, then you can work in developing your character strengths, and that way you are going to become more virtuous on life. So, for example, wisdom is a result of creativity, curiosity, judgment, love of learning, and perspective. Courage is a result of bravery, perseverance, honesty, and zest. Humanity is a result of love, kindness, social intelligence. Justice is the result of teamwork, fairness, leadership. Temperance is the result of forgiveness, humility, prudence, self-regulation. And transcendence is the appreciation of beauty and excellence, gratitude, hope, humor, and spirituality. So the idea is that we can ask ourselves, like, what are areas, what of these character strengths are strong on me and what are not? What are my areas of opportunity and what are the areas that I still need to work on them and consolidate them? Because we know this is a lifelong process, right? There's no one that can say, like, now I'm a virtuous person, now I have fulfilled my life, now no, we are all in the process, right? So with that in mind, they develop a questionnaire, and with that questionnaire, they can provide you a diagnosis of your virtues and strengths. That's awesome, right? They can tell you what areas are you doing good and what areas you need to improve. And that's precisely your homework for this week. You need to take the VI survey of character strength and share the results with me. There's a link in your Brightspace, in assignments, or in week number 4. You can submit the results there, okay? And you just click here, and it's gonna open that for you. Remember, it's 10 points. And this is due 11:20, so Saturday at 10 p.m., okay? Okay, my computer is thinking, it's trying to open. I hope that, okay, good. You're gonna have the webpage like this, I'm still thinking, I don't know why it's so slow. It's usually not this slow. And here you're going to be able to complete the questionnaire, okay? So once that you complete the questionnaire, what they're going to do is that they're going to give you a report. And with that report, they're going to tell you what are your virtues, what are your character strengths, what are your areas of opportunity, and even they are going to provide ideas, strategies on how can you work in those character strengths and virtues, okay? All right, it's still thinking, I don't know what's going on with my computer. It's usually very fast. So, and well, this is just a reference page of the presentation. There are some links there that you can go and you can see the text that I was using for the presentation for you to know more about the subjective well-being model, the psychological well-being model, and the PERMA model, okay? All right, so let me see if there you have. This is the webpage, the VI Institute of Character, and you take the free survey, okay? You just have to put your email, and it's gonna take you something around 15, 20 minutes to complete, and then they're gonna give you this PDF with your results, and you're gonna share that PDF with me, okay? And also remember, there are some suggestions and strategies that they're gonna give you so you know how to improve your character strengths and your virtues in life. All right, guys, I hope that you like this video. I hope that it was not too long. Summarizing, we talk about the cross, and we talk about the two sides of the cross, and that we need to see both of those sides to have a complete understanding of the huge sacrifice that God did for us, Jesus did for us, and that He's also expecting from us. And then we talk about the subjective subjective well-being, which is a hedonistic model, the psychological well-being that is a eudaimonic model, and then the PERMA model, which is also a eudaimonic model, but it's just a different model. And then we talk about the virtues and character of strengths. So I hope that you like it. I'm going to be happy to read your comments here in the video. Remember your comments. That's the evidence that you watch the videos, and then you're going to have your attendance. All right. Have a good day, guys, and God bless you.